Hello and welcome to the Magic Mechanic Show radio show right here on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. My name is Josh McCarthy, sitting behind the microphone, sitting here next to Larry Perry, the one and only Magic Mechanic, with an office there right off Lee Road. My name is Josh McCarthy. Talk to Larry today. You got a question about your car, your truck, any kind of thing in between, your van, your generator, your moped, anything with an engine. Now is your chance to call in and get some free advice. And you can't get that anywhere but here. So call right now, 844-580-WDBO. That's 844-580-9326. Or just about 90 minutes from now, we'll be answering your open mic. So send them our way. Download the WDBO app free in the App Store and Play Store. Click the big open mic button and send us your way so Larry can answer them in a chip-chop shape that only Larry can do. How you doing today, Larry?
We're doing fantastic, Josh. Got done with the mountain bike ride earlier today and washed the car and the truck, so
productive Saturday going on.
Took a shower and now it's time to do the Magic Mechanic radio show. Yeah, we've already gotten 3 emails up so far. I'm hoping that the phone calls outweigh the emails today, so you folks hop on board and get with it. We don't want the emailers to outdo the phone callers. Hey, folks, it's 3 o'clock. I'm Larry Perry, and you're tuned in to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. So you new listeners know this is an interactive automotive and mechanical advice program where we help you with your car problems and just about anything mechanical. And it's been our pleasure to do so for over 31 years. Me personally, I'm an automotive shop owner, and I've been a master auto technician since 1982. To make the program work, well, we need your phone calls, and the lines are open at 844-580-9326. And remember, all your calls and your car questions will be indexed, and they're getting placed on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel, so other folks searching for answers like yours will be able to get the same information. Think about that. Folks will be able to play your car questions back 100 years from now, so we'll always be able to tune them back in, and if you didn't get what I said, well, you'll be able to go back and play it back. How's that? Whether you got you call in, ask questions about dash warning lights, poor fuel economy, oil consumption, maybe your AC's not working right, vibrations, steering issues, warranty questions, maybe there's a new car that you're thinking about buying and you're kind of wanting to know a little bit about the track record of it, what we've actually seen coming into the shop as far as problems goes. Those are all welcome. And even more so, used cars. If you're looking at buying a used car and you're out there, well, it seems to run and drive out okay, but, there's no way that you're going to know if that vehicle has got an issue of using a lot of oil or not, and things like that are characteristics of a lot of vehicles. So just to get a little information, on what you should do before you buy a used car, and trust me, I don't care if it's only got 15,000 miles on it, and the customer that I'm talking about may be listening and cringing right now for not having a pre-purchase inspection done. Even 15,000 miles will get you, folks. Antique, classic car problems. Maybe you're in the middle of a restoration project, and we love to talk about that stuff. Maybe you got a carbureted vehicle. You're thinking about going to one of the newer fuel injection systems on it, like the Holley Projection system, something along those lines. Maybe you got an old Cadillac sitting in the garage and it's been sitting there for 20 years, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with it. I could probably give you some pointers and get you headed in the right direction. We got hybrids out here now. They're coming up needing batteries and stuff. What's the best battery or what's the best way to go about getting a battery back in your hybrid? Or what should you consider doing with an electric vehicle when that time comes? And of course we got the diesels out here, and a lot of them's got those DPF filters on them now, which is part of the exhaust system. It's a particulate system that burns all the exhaust contaminants, and those things will get plugged up, and they're a fortune to replace. but we've got some very affordable ways of actually bringing them back to life. So, if you want to kind of tune in and ask a few questions about your diesel, you're certainly welcome. Also, remember, I have a complete database of all the listed recalls. And those, some of the recalls you don't even know about. You'll never get any information on them. And a lot of these technical service bulletins, instead of sending them to shops and to dealer techs, they need to send them to the owners of the vehicles too. If I own a vehicle and it shifts absolutely lousy, and I kind of just live with it because it's characteristic of the vehicle. Well, and there's this miracle reprogram for the computer system. Well, not only should a technician get that information, but the owner should also know something like that is available. But, unless it's in for that particular problem, it's probably not even going to be researched, and you will continue to live with it as long as you own the vehicle. So, those types of technical service bulletins and some of these recall things are literally almost double secret. Consumer never even hears about them. And, a lot of the recalls are geographically specific, too. Can you imagine that? They might be a recall on a vehicle in Michigan, and they may not be one in Florida, and it's all because of road salt. Think about that. Things like that deteriorate with corrosive materials that Florida vehicles may not be subjected to. So it's really kind of crazy what we've got to take into consideration when we have technical service bulletins and some of these recalls show up on our lap. All you need to do is give us a call. That number is 844-580-9326. Once again, if you can remember the 844 and the station that you're listening to, which is 580 WDBO, if you can remember that, well, Josh will go ahead and he'll get you lined up. And all you'll need to do is give him the year, the make, and the model of your vehicle and a description of your problem, and you'll be placed on a brief hold, and we'll take your call in the order that it was received. Also, remember, for immediate help, you can call the shop number and speak to my general manager, JD, at 407-629-2661. Also want to mention the open mic option. You can go to WDBO.com on your smartphone and download the app, and you can leave us an open mic car question. Just give us the year, make, and model and the issue you're having. And remember, you only got about 30 seconds to get that all lined up, or it'll automatically cut you off. So year, make, and model, and right to your problem with the car you're having. And we'll get to those at the bottom of the 4 o'clock news break. You can also ask a car question like a few already has today by emailing me, Larry@magicmechanic.com. Also, I can't guarantee we'll get to all of them. It depends on the phone calls, because they are the phone calls into the show are prioritized. But the emails, I try to work a few of those in during the course of the program. But if I can't fit them all in, well, we'll get them answered by the first of the week. Looks like we are going to be starting the program out with emails today. Let's see who we're going to take first here. This one here is Brenda from Altamont Springs. She's got a 2009 Toyota Camry with 178,000 miles on it, and she says the battery keeps going dead. This is a common call we get here on the show, and she says that she's got a new battery, and AutoZone says her alternator is good, and she says she has to jump start her car every morning. Well, there's several things that can cause a battery to go dead overnight. Nowadays, in the fuse and relay centers in these vehicles underneath the hood, not only do you have some, regular relays in a lot of cases, but you have these micro relays that are actually built into these circuit boards in these fuse and relay centers, and they're actually integrated in the middle of them. They're not, serviceable externally, and they can be a fit for a mechanic to diagnose as well. But they can do things like if you've got a vehicle that has, an electronic power brake system, those relays can stick on and it'll actually go and let those pump motors run continuously, either until the pump motor burns up or the battery goes dead. Same things with those auto leveling systems and fuel pumps in the gas tank. Think about it. You can shut your vehicle off and you can walk away from it, go inside your house, and there's something staying powered up inside the vehicle, and it'll run the battery dead. Now, I always tell folks to listen when you're in the car and everything is shut off to see if you hear anything running. If you don't, there is some other issues that can come and haunt you, and one of them is the alternator, the part that actually charges the battery. See, an alternator can do a couple things. One is, their job is to function and charge your battery and replace any voltage that you use out of the battery. Well, what will happen is inside these alternators, there is what they call a diode bridge. And in that diode bridge, it's kind of like a one-way valve. It'll allow voltage to be displaced from the alternator to the battery, but it won't take voltage from the battery back into the alternator. And when those diodes go bad, they can actually go and pull all the voltage out of the battery when the car sets overnight. And see, the problem with it is it can charge perfect. You can jump start it, and the alternator will charge just like it's supposed to. And then, so it's you take it into a place or a parts store, and they check the battery. Well, the battery's good, and the alternator's charging, but they're not with it whenever you shut the vehicle off to find out that there is a continuous draw. That the alternator is continuously pulling voltage right straight back out of the battery. And then, of course, the battery would be dead as a doornail the next morning, and then you got to pull out some jumper cables and go aggravate your neighbor. So, with that being said, those are the things that needs to be looked at, and don't ever underestimate an alternator. They can really give you fits when it comes to running a battery down. But other things, like I said, relays in the Fusion Relay Center, instrument clusters are also known for giving you problems where they can actually pull voltage out of the battery, even though the vehicle is off as well. So, we're going to go ahead and break for the 3 big things you need to know. And we come back. Remember, folks, we got some wide open lines at 844-580-9326. We got another email. Gee whiz, I got email. It's going to be an email show, it looks like, if you folks don't hop on the phones. 844-580-WDBO.
And you don't speak that language. Well, I know somebody who does. That's Larry Perry. Well, he may not speak the language like he's told me in the past, but he can certainly find any code there is in the world. I hope. If not, he will know who to go to and what to do. Call right now, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. What do you say, Larry? You want to take one of these calls here?
Yeah, let's head out to, looks like, Carlos in Winter Springs.
Certainly. Go ahead, Carlos. You're on the air with Larry Perry.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hey.
I'm here.
What can we do for you?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm calling in behalf of my cousin. She lives in Wichita, Kansas. She has a 2018 Nissan Rogue that she's having air conditioning problems. She has to leave it in auto setting for it to work right. The dealer is saying there's no fix for it. If she sets it to cold, like in the summer, or heat in the winter, it'll fluctuate. It'll go back and forth. That's why she has to leave it in auto, and the dealer's being no help to her.
Okay. Now, when you say it's going backwards and forwards, you're telling me that it's getting cold air and then it's not, or
it's going from cold to hot to cold. Okay. No matter what setting she has it in. Like for the summer, if she sets it in cold, then it'll go back and forth, and then same in the winter, like right now, it'll go back and forth. She has to keep it in auto, and the dealer's saying there's no fix. It's a common problem that the Rogues have. That's why I'm calling you.
Yeah. Listen, those vehicles use a control module, an AC control module for the AC on that vehicle. Now, you're telling me that if she runs it in the auto mode, it will blow continuously cold, correct?
It'll it's got a brain, I guess, somehow. Maybe to know what setting for it to blow at, the comfortable setting, on whether it's winter or summer or somewhere in between. That's what she's told me, that in auto setting it acts right, but then the other settings it doesn't act right.
Yeah.
That's
Carlos,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You know, these are kind of hard to talk about without putting a set of gauges on them. To diagnose. And I'll tell you why. See, you got two things here. You've got this electronic control module, the AC control module, that takes all the information in and then it disperses it. Now, the AC compressor itself is one of these newer, what we call variable displacement compressors. They don't actually use a clutch on the front of them like an old-style compressor does. The compressor actually runs all the time. When you start the vehicle up, a belt is actually turning it. So what winds up happening is there's this control valve on the back of the compressor, and that's what has to adjust in order to get the AC compressor to produce, maximum pump effort or just a little bit of pumping effort. So what something's not controlling the control valve in the compressor correctly. And in most cases, it's usually the control module that's inside the vehicle. Now, I will tell you this. This, just because it's an 18 doesn't mean anything. We've had this problem with some older Rogues as well. Now, I will tell you what you can tell her to try. One of them is, if it was my vehicle, the first thing I would do is pull the AC fuse out of the fuse and relay center for about 15 minutes. That's going to make the AC control module go completely brain dead. And then when it starts it back up, it's going to have to relearn everything again. I think it is a programming problem. And just by letting the control module lose its voltage there for about 15 minutes, that may be all it takes in order to get that thing up and running right. If not, I would want to put a set of AC gauges on the lines to check the pressures while the system was running and see what the pressures were actually doing when it started fluctuating between the hot and the cold. Listen, I appreciate your call, and I hope that gives her a little bit of help. But let's pull that AC fuse. Let's try that to start with, and then see what happens. Get back with me if that makes a difference for it.
And my name is Josh McCarthy, connecting you with your questions with Larry and his answers. Anything you got going on with your car, maybe it's just kind of cranking to the right when it used to crank straight, and that's not how it's supposed to be. So call up Larry and ask right now. He's answering all your automotive questions for the low, low price of free. 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. Let's head over to Apopka, where Ben's calling in. Go ahead, Ben.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Ben.
Listened to you for a long time, but now I'm stumped, buddy. I need some help.
What you got, Ben?
Okay, I got a 2010 Sport Track Adrenaline with the 4.63 valve.
All right.
I tell you what I did, because I may have caused the issue myself, so I'll give you all the info. I pulled the cluster because I had several bulbs up, and I replaced bulbs in the cluster with incandescents, not LEDs, put it all back together, and now I have an issue where it takes like sometimes a minute or so for it to recognize the key. So it sounds like a PATS issue.
Yeah.
And I pull codes on it, and it never throws a light, but it does throw the 1260 immobilized, P1260.
Okay. Yeah.
But it will, but it sits there for what happened is it'll sit there for like a minute, then the chime will go off and you can start it. And then, if you shut it off, it'll start back up again. If you wait more than 30, 40 minutes, it's going to do the same thing over again.
Yeah. Ben, I'm going to tell you like this.
Yes,
it's probably going to have the keys reprogrammed.
Okay.
This is the situation. On that vehicle, it's either going to have the PATS module either in the instrument cluster or a separate body control module. One of the two. I wouldn't know.
I think it's in the cluster.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like it is.
No, I read about it. I think that's probably the issue for sure.
Yeah, I and by disconnecting it like you did, it probably lost a little bit of memory there, and those things can be very, very finicky. And we have to take, and you do have two good keys for it, right?
Yes, sir. I got two of the factory keys.
Yeah, we have to take our IDS, which is the diagnostic tool that we use on the Fords, and then we have to be hardwired. You can't do this wirelessly. We have to be hardwired into the internet, and then we go on to the Ford site, and we put in all your vehicle's information, and then it'll allow us to go ahead and reprogram and mate those keys back to your computer system. So it's who would have ever thought that we'd have to go through something like this? I know. But it is. You're lucky that it is allowing you to go ahead and restart the vehicle. That's one of the things, because a lot of times when you run into this, and if it loses any type of anti-theft memory, in a lot of cases you'd have to put the key in, maybe turn it to the on position and let it set for maybe 10 minutes. And if you were researching this, you probably seen that as well. So,
I know I've had that happen with a Chevrolet product, GM product, where you have to do a 10-minute reset. I've done that before. This one right here just threw me for a loop.
Yeah, give us a holler, and JD will find a time we could get it in there and go ahead and get those keys reprogrammed, to the anti-theft module there for you, and that'll get it going again. It's either probably bring it to us or either take it to the dealer, Ben, because not everybody's got this equipment, as you can probably well imagine. So. It's
I'd
not.
rather bring it to you, Larry. No offense to the dealer, but
it's probably not something you're going to get done at your quick lube. Let me put it like that. So, but give us a holler. We can help you with it. We will, Ben. Thanks for the call.
All right, take care.
Thank you so much, Ben. That opens up a line for you to get your question answered by Larry Perry, 844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO. Feel free to download the WDBO app right there in your App Store or Play Store. In about 1 hour, we'll be going through those, getting those answered by the Magic Mechanic himself. What do you say we head over to New Smyrna, the shark bite capital of the world? Talk to Peter. Go ahead, Peter.
Hey, Larry. How are you, bud?
I'm doing good.
So, I emailed you about it. We have two cars in the family that are having a little glitch.
All right.
An 04, it's got the transmission, and it'll run all the way to Orlando, and on the way back, it'll begin to slip. Can only go into, let's just say it's a 4-speed. It'll only go into third gear. But in third gear, it's running at 4,000 RPM. I think it's these bands in the transmission that have never been serviced. And they do they still get a lacquer on them? And if they, what I mean? She's not like me.
Are you still there?
Yep, sure am.
Okay. On a Toyota transmission like that, if it's not going into fourth gear and torque converter lockup, I'm assuming that you may have an issue, maybe with a solenoid or something along those lines. How many miles are on this transmission?
Hey there, Larry. We had a bit of a confusion. I believe we lost Peter, but let's see if we can get Peter back on. So we can go ahead and take that person on line one, if you like. Is that Lori calling from Beverly Hills?
All right.
Hello.
Sorry, Larry.
Hi, Lori.
Hey.
What can I do for you?
I have a 2017 Ford F-150, and when I start it up in the morning, it blows out blue smoke out of the exhaust. And that's the only time it does it, just after it sits all night.
Lori, what engine do you have in this vehicle?
The 2.7 liter and it's the EcoBoost.
Okay.
With the twin turbo.
How many miles are on it?
141,000.
141. Does it seem to run okay?
Yeah, it runs great.
All right. Lori, let me ask you this. As far as its oil services go, number one, how often are you changing the oil? And number two, what type of oil have you been using in it?
Let's see, I change it about every 3,000 miles. They say I can do it longer. Sometimes I let it go until it tells me that I need to change my oil. It just depends on where I'm working and what I'm doing. And I use 530.
Okay. There's only two things that'll really cause that vehicle to do what it's doing. Are you adding a lot of oil to the engine?
No, I never have to add oil.
Okay, all right. Let me tell you what you probably got going on here. With the miles that you have on it, it wouldn't surprise me if you've got a little bit of turbo leakage. It's at about that age, and if you've run, semi-synthetics and those types of oils in it, what's probably wound up happening is the turbo seals are probably starting to leak a little bit on it. And what will happen is when the vehicle's not running, the residual oil that is being used to lubricate the turbines inside the turbo will actually seep out from around the seals a little bit. And then when you start it up, you've got that oil there that's actually getting sucked in and through the intake system. And what it'll do is, of course, when that oil is getting through the intake, it's going to cause the truck to smoke some. And once it burns that off, of course, it goes away. What I would suggest that you would do in a case like this, and it's a little bit of a job to do it, but the truck needs to be placed up on a rack, and somebody needs to pull the air tubes off of the turbo and actually look inside those turbos and inside the induction tubing to see if there's oil that's actually been getting in there. If there's oil that's actually getting into that turbo system and coming out of the turbos, that's what your problem is. If it was any other engine, or if it's been neglected now, and there's a lot of sludge in the top of the cylinder heads, that could cause a problem too on that engine. If it's been neglected and not had its oil changed properly, and often enough, those engines can develop sludge, and there's no two ways about it. I see a lot of them come in the shop because of engine sludge, especially around 150,000 mile. We usually, all of our customers, we have them running the AMSOIL synthetic oil in them, and we only change it about every 10 or 15,000 mile. But by using those types of oils, it eliminates the problems like you're having here. You don't really have turbo seals that start to fail, and you don't have valve guide seals that start leaking in the cylinder heads to cause blue smoke when you start it up in the mornings. But in your case, at this point, you need to have somebody pull the air tubes off of the turbo units and actually inspect those and see if there's any oil coming out of those turbos. If they are, it's one of them situations to where, they will probably eventually have to be replaced if they're leaking oil out of them, because there's no magic go in there and reseal them, so to speak, because they use what's called ceramic seals inside of them. Rubber seal would never hold up because of the extreme heat that they're subjected to. So, have somebody inspect it. And I'll tell you another thing, too, is it's very important that you do this because you have an intercooler that cools that air that's being supplied from those turbo units. And if they're leaking oil, that oil will get into those intercoolers and into the intercooler itself, and it can actually fill that intercooler up, and then all of a sudden your engine just engulf a whole lot of oil at one time, and then you're really going to have a mess on your hands because it'll hydro that motor and explode it, literally. So let's check the turbos, see if they're seeping some oil out of them, and if they are, like I said, you're allowed to be buying a couple turbo units for your 2.7 F-150 for Christmas. So, but that's the first thing you want to look at. The motors are holding up pretty good in those 2.7s, other than a few timing chain issues along the way. But I think Ford's got most of that worked out. But let's check those turbos, see if they're leaking, Lori. And I wish you the best of luck and have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. Peter from New Smyrna is calling back in right now. Thank you so much for covering for my mistake, Peter. I apologize. If you want to talk to Larry Perry today, the number is 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. We'll be right back. We're going to go back to Peter, who was so patient. Thank you so much for giving us a call back, Peter. Calling from New Smyrna. Let's pick up right where you left off.
Go ahead.
Hey, Larry. So, yeah, of course that will not duplicate. That symptom won't duplicate. We just have to keep track of it. But you've got to drive that car about probably 80 miles. Once you stop at a traffic light after that or a gas station, you start to go again. It just will not. It won't go up in the high gear, and it revs like crazy, like 4,000.
Yeah, you're over revving the motor.
55.
Yeah, you're way over revving the engine. Now, you're saying if you take off with it and it's cold, everything is fine, right?
It'll run like a scalded dog from here to Claremont and all the way back to the exit, in Smyrna.
Okay, and then you say you shut it off, and you go back to get into it, and the daggone thing won't want to shift, say, like out of third gear.
Exactly.
All right,
or
now,
even
listen.
if stop at, exactly, yeah.
All right, let's think of this. Those transmissions have a temp sensor inside of them, and they get a signal from the computer system to activate overdrive and torque converter clutch. Now, let's just say, for an example, you've got a thermostat that is stuck open. If you do, why, you drive that thing all over the place, and it'll never go into torque converter lockup. It'll never do it. I don't care if you're driving on a 100-degree day. If that engine temperature doesn't get to where it needs to be, it'll not go into TCC lockup. Now, you're going and you're having an issue to where you're driving it and everything is fine and dandy. My goodness, you could drive it to the moon. Then you drive it and you shut it off and you go back into it and you're only shifting up to, say, third gear. Or either you're going into some type of limp mode and maybe you're only going into second gear. This is one of those cases to where I would have to scan it and I'd have to see what codes are in the system. But if I wasn't getting any trouble codes for a shift solenoid or a pressure sensor or something like that, you know what I would do to that thing?
Go ahead.
I'm writing it down. I would put me an aftermarket transmission cooler on that thing so fast it'd make your head swim.
All right.
You see what I'm saying?
You're the main transmissions. You're the only one I think of when I think of transmission. I'm like, all right, well. She can get the rental car from you for that if you still do them for $8.99 or whatever. It's just a good spot to go to.
But the thing of it is, I would think that it's a temperature related issue, and if that transmission cooler is plugged up in that thing and it's overheating while you're driving it, then you go to restart it and take back off, and your computer system's sitting there going, oh my goodness, this transmission temperature is 275 degrees, and it's going to wind up causing it to go into a limp mode. Is exactly what's happening. It sounds like the transmission cooler is plugged up on that thing. Those transmissions, I mean, they hold up so good in those vintage Toyotas. We have such few problems out of them, and see, it's working okay. I mean, if you were telling me you started off from a cold start and it was giving you all these issues, I'd say, well, it's probably an internal problem. This is an electrical problem that is caused by overheating, and the only thing that's going to cause transmission to overheat is if it's got a plugged up cooler. I think I've convinced myself of it.
With a 2004 car, I don't know why she didn't want it. She loves it. She won't get rid of it. But
I see it. I see it. I see folks every day that won't get rid of a 10, 15-year-old vehicle because they absolutely love it. And I can't blame them. If it's a good vehicle otherwise, why in the world get rid of it? Look at what your options are to buy nowadays. So hanging on to an older vehicle like that, you're not the only one. Thanks for your call. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you. I think we can straighten this one out for you.
Seconds, and Larry will get to him like only he can. And sometimes, Larry, well, you never know what's going to be coming through those open mics.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Hey, folks, welcome to the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. It's the show where you call in and ask your automotive questions, and you can't beat the price because it's absolutely free. That number is 844-580-WDBO. Or for you numerical folks, it's 844-580-9326. Go ahead and hop online, and Josh will get you lined up. Give him the year, make, and model, a brief description of what your car's doing, and we'll get you lined up and get your car question answered. Also, we take your automotive questions and my comments, and we place them on our new YouTube channel so other folks can maybe find the same help that you seek. Plus, you can play it back anytime you want. That number again is 844-580-9326, or if you can just remember the 844-580-WDBO. And if you'd like, you can also speak to JD at the Magic Mechanic Shop. That number's 407-629-2661. If the line's busy, just leave a message and he'll get back in touch with you. Folks, our sponsors are very important to the show. We all pitch in to bring you the program every week. As you can well imagine, a couple hours of airtime every week, it does add up. So it takes a bunch of us in order to be able to provide you this program like we have for the last 31 years. So it all between me and my sponsors, that's how we keep it going, and a lot of help from WDBO as well. And if you need anything that our sponsors have or offers, make sure you tell them you heard about them here on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Orlando Auto Upholstery. Whether you're in the middle of a restoration project, a convertible top needs to be replaced, carpet seats, anything interior-wise, sun visors, console needs to be reupholstered, or your driver's seat's got some wear on it, and you want it to look like new again. Anything upholstery-wise, whether it be on a boat, a motor home, a semi, anything that needs to be reupholstered, or any type of interior work, visit OrlandoAutoUpholstery.com. And their phone number is 407-898-2351. An absolute artesian shop. You just don't find this type of work, and not many folks do this type of stuff anymore. So if you need this type of work done, definitely give them a call. I've used them, know them personally. They're great folks to deal with. Amsoil synthetic lubricants for your car, truck, van, SUV, boat, motorcycle, tractor, bulldozer, lawn equipment, you name it. Amsoil makes a lubricant for it. You got to look at it like this. It's the only synthetic oil that I know of. It's a polyalpha olefin that actually runs to heat and friction and will not release until the engine gets cold. It works completely backwards of every other oil on the market. And that's the reason you'll see over and over, people getting a 500,000, 750,000, 1 million Amsoil miles out of engines that normally won't last that long. So if you want an engine and a transmission to last you for a long time without having to replace them, you need to understand what Amsoil does. And you got to look at it like this too. Amsoil warranties your engine against any lubrication failure as long as you put their product in sound equipment. So folks that use AMSOIL only change it about once a year, every 15,000 mile. The warranty is they warranty your engine against any lubrication failure. Every once in a while, we'll have a reason to take a valve cover or cam cover off of one of these high mileage AMSOIL engines, and it's like brand new inside. It's just we look at these engines in amazement every time we get a chance to peek inside of an AMSOIL engine. They're like brand new. They are literally like brand new, and this is after 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 mile. And there's nowhere you could take a caliper and a mic and spend all day inside the motor, and you can't find anything out of tolerance. It is just a fountain of youth when it comes to an automobile. If you want to look at more information on it, just go to amsoil.com. Jasper Engines and Transmissions. If you're going to keep a vehicle and maybe you need a motor or transmission, you want to repower it, and you don't want some internet disaster, folks. You want to make an investment. You're not going to replace a motor or transmission to save $200 or $300. Let me just tell you that up front. If that's your goal, you are going to wind up regretting it. You need to buy a quality replacement component like a Jasper engine or transmission. Have it installed, and it's that simple. It's got a 100,000 mile nationwide warranty, and that's an impenetrable warranty. They've been in business for 80 years, so they know how to build an engine and transmission. But I can build any motor, any transmission. It doesn't matter. But I can't give somebody a 100,000 mile warranty on it. My goodness, they'd be out here pulling boats as big as a house. But Jasper doesn't care. They don't care. You get a 100,000 mile warranty with all their stuff, and it's non-negotiable. 100,000 mile warranty. And of course, last but not least, the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center located in Orlando, Florida. Engines, transmissions, brakes, suspension, steering, electrical repairs, and of course, AMSOIL synthetic lubricants. You can visit us at magicmechanic.com, or you can email your questions directly to me at any time, Larry@magicmechanic.com. All right, looks like Paul from, it says Orlando Beach. I love this. Paul, what can we do for you, sir?
Hey, Larry. Switch off speaker here. I have a 94 Sportster. I'm having some ignition problems, some spark problems. Very, very weak spark. First thing I did, I had an old tune-up background for about 8 years, and that was a long time ago. But first thing I did is replace the coil. 28 years old, I figured give it a shot. Didn't help. Then a guy said, your voltage regulator is probably your problem. I replaced that, and when I pulled it off, the insulation was gone from the two hot wires, pretty much. It didn't change. I still got a weak spark, and I'm thinking the stator's probably trashed. And this guy says, you might want to look at your ignition module. He goes, remember, the stator's basically your alternator. You can run without one in any vehicle until the battery dies, and the battery's got good voltage. I did check to make sure I had full battery voltage from the ignition switch to the coil. Would you concur that probably the ignition module is the next thing to look at?
Well, I wouldn't know until I took a low voltage probe to the negative side of the coil and actually checked to see if I was getting a pulse there. You say you're getting a weak spark, right?
Weak spark at the plugs. Pull the plugs, and it's just this kind of fat little orangey kind of thing that's not a whole lot of power looking there. It will not fire up anymore.
All right. Have you tried to spray a little carb cleaner in the carburetor and see if it hit then?
Oh yeah.
And still doesn't. Still don't.
Running the choke on it. Run the choke up full. Cranking the wick a few times before starting to hit the accelerator pump. Squirt some fuel in there. And still will not fire. The spark just looks so weak, it just doesn't want to do it.
Wow.
Very, very weak looking.
Yeah. And you do have 12 volts going to the positive side of the coil itself.
I've got, 12
from the ignition
going to that side of the coil.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, see, what's got me confused is what's got me confused is you're getting your pulse. You're seeing the spark plug spark. You see what I'm saying? So that means the pickup and the ignition module, everything's working the way it's supposed to. And the coil is getting its signal, to fire the coil. And if you've got 12 volts there on the other side, on the positive side of the coil, it's getting everything it's supposed to have. And let me just tell you this right now. There is such a thing as getting a bad new part. I can write a book on that, and we had a crank sensor in a Jeep Cherokee just about put every one of us in the nut house here over the last few months. I mean, because it was working, but
myself with a distributor and an S10.
Oh,
a broken piece of the pickup was broken.
Yeah.
And it wasn't obvious.
A bad new part will drive you insane. And see,
I did ohm out the coil.
Okay.
I did ohm the coil out, 3 to 4 ohms, somewhere around there across the terminals, and even the old one came in around there.
Well, you can't really you can't check a coil condition like that. You gotta be able to check the spark coming out of that coil. You got to be checking it for KVs. That's how you check a coil. Just because it doesn't matter what it ohms out at. I don't care what it ohms out at. I mean, if it reads infinity, if it reads infinity, there's no resistance in it. The coil's bad. But as far as reading how many ohms it's got, I don't think you'll ever be able to really 100% check the condition of a coil like that. You got to check the KVs, and that is the actual spark that it's emitting. You're getting everything that you need. I'm thinking that you have got a lousy. I think you got a whole bunch of bad coils. you got everything you want. I think we're all over. I think we're way overthinking this one, and I'm going to tell you, it's easy to do because I mean. I think I'm going to write a book on this crank sensor, what it put Magic Mechanic through. I mean, it was embarrassing what we went through with that vehicle to try to figure out what was going on with it. And it being a bad new part. Only this bad new part actually worked. Sometimes it worked great. I mean, on a vehicle, you drive it to the moon and back, never have a problem. But boy, you shut it off and start it back up, the party was over. And to beat yourself up over a bad new part like that, let's put an original equipment Harley Davidson coil on that thing, and give me a call back and let me know what happens.
I'll do that. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Paul.
For the low price of free. Let's head up all the way up to the Northeast, where Paul is calling in from Massachusetts. How you doing up today, Paul?
Very good, thank you.
What can I do for you, Paul?
Larry, I got a question. I'm considering buying a 2005 Toyota Highlander. It's got 36,000 miles on it, and it's got the little 4-cylinder in it. Now, I've seen articles on the internet, which we all know must be true, about problems with this engine's piston rings and head bolts. Are you familiar with any of that?
I really haven't had any problems with the pistons in that engine or the rings. Those engines actually hold up pretty good. And believe it or not, we have very few problems with the head bolts. Now, the head bolts aren't the problem. If you read in depth on what the situation was with those, what it is, they've got these steel head bolts going into this aluminum block's threads. And they've got literally pretty much too much torque on the bolts. And what will happen is over time, the torque itself can actually pull the threads in the block. And if that happens, you got to pull the cylinder head, and then we go and we got a kit just for those engines where we go in and we put what they call time certs in the block itself. Now, these threads are recessed way down in the block, so this is a little bit of a process to do, and of course, the cylinder head has to come off the motor to do it. But we actually drill and then we tap new threads all the way in the bottom, and we put this steel set of threads in there called a time cert. It's threaded on the outside and the inside, and that way you get steel threads that are embedded into that block as opposed to pulling against aluminum ones. Now, in most cases, you don't really have a problem with those. It's the problem that you will have with them is if the engine got severely overheated and the head has to come off of it. Then what happens is when the head bolts are actually removed, to pull the head, you will wind up in a situation where it brings the threads with it, And then if you were to go back and try to put the head back on, you'd go to torque it down, and there wouldn't be nothing there to tighten up against. So, but I'm going to tell you right now, Paul, on a vehicle like that, no more miles on it than what's on that one. I don't think motor or transmission-wise is anything you probably will need to be too awful concerned with, other than, when you get a vehicle like that that's that old, it'd probably be a good idea to go ahead and service the cooling system, service the transmission, that sort of thing. But my main concern, because of where you're at, and we know that you all don't get any bad weather or salt on the roads. That's what I would be all over. Now, I'd want to get it up on a rack, and I'd want to look underneath this thing myself. And you need to do that. You need to call up an independent shop up there, tell them what you're considering buying. You just want to make sure that there's something left underneath the vehicle to give you a little service out of it. But call up an independent shop, tell them you don't want to be an annoyance, but you want to get that vehicle in there, kind of do a pre-purchase inspection, and you would really like to be able to take a peek underneath the vehicle just to see the condition of it before you buy it. Listen, it's worth a couple $100 to any shop to go through this and for your own peace of mind. But definitely take my advice on that. Paul, thank you so much for the call from Massachusetts. You have a great Thanksgiving.
If you got a question for Larry, call right now, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. But this portion of the show we love to dedicate, we love to set aside for the open mics that we receive on a weekly basis. What do you say, Larry?
Let's play some open mics, and we're going to be busy. We got a lot of calls to take care of.
You got it. So we'll fly through these. Here is number one.
Nate Flondowski here. I'm getting one of those Jaspers, putting my F-150, so I'm driving the Wasu Beirut. Foreign job from Indonesia or some other godforsaken island. Right wheel starts shaking, so I pulls over. Bald-headed Puerto Rican feller named Ron stops and asks if I need help. Nice feller, but he had an accent. Don't you just hate folks with accents? Said he's a producer at the WDBO, and I should call your show. So what do you think's wrong with this here third world rat box piece of...
Okay. Oh, man. I'll tell you what. He is a very gifted individual, right?
Yeah, he sounds like an SNL writer at its heart.
Man, I'm telling you. Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah, I love listening to him. All right, next.
Here we go. Number two.
Hey, Larry, your assistant Josh, does he sing that song that you play in between? Thank you. Stan from Davenport.
Now, I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, you know, I gave you some new bumper stuff, and you never play it. I mean, you know, we had, what was it, Hill Country Hot Rod, and, of course, we got Hot Rod Lincoln. And
I didn't know you wanted those to add into the rotation. I thought it was a special one-time off.
No. That's the reason that he was asking if you sang those songs, because you seem to favor them because you play them over and over and over.
Well, here's a little behind the scenes on how the sausage is made. I have this button here that was here before I started that says Larry Music. Well, and that's what's left here for me. So if you want to switch it up, by all means.
I want you to roll up your shirt sleeves and get creative here. All right. Now listen, we've got some very, very finicky listeners out here, and they want to be entertained. You know, and if you're not singing those songs live during the, you know, join and rejoin, then we're going to have to come up with some new music, according to Stan.
I'm here for it. Sorry to upset you, Stan.
Hey, it's all in fun. All right, who's up next? We got a lot of calls to take care of here.
Yep, we're going to head over to Patrick, calling from Merritt Island. Patrick, go ahead. You're on the Magic Mechanic Show.
Hey, Larry, I want to give you true props. You rebuilt the rear differential of my Ram 2011. You gave me a quote. JD thought you were nuts, but you were right on the quote. He saved me $500.
Well, I hope that we got you squared away there.
You did. Oh, I just wanted to say you guys do excellent work. I will always recommend you because you did me right, and your quote was on. He was 500 over because he thought you were great with the quote you gave me because you showed him the email earlier this year.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you hollering. Patrick, your phone's breaking up something terrible. I wish we could hold you on longer, but hey, I love a compliment, and you know, anything that we do like that, especially a differential. So many of those you can't buy them. Jasper don't have them. Nobody, and salvage yards really, you know, you probably wind up with one worse off than what you got. But yeah, a lot of the differentials we're having to build now, and I'm glad we were able to help you with that, Patrick. And I appreciate you calling and giving us kudos for that. Thank you, buddy. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much, Patrick. If you want to talk to Larry, call 844-580-9326. Let's head on up to Ocala, where Robert's calling in. Go ahead, Robert.
Oh, hey, Larry. Thank you for another Saturday of car talk.
Well, hey, thanks for listening.
Oh, yeah. And I haven't heard anybody ask this question lately, so I'm going to have to because I need to know. I changed my oil using AMSOIL for the first time at 65,000 miles. And I'm wondering if I should change the filter soon, or will the filter go the distance till my next drain and fill?
Robert, this is what I do. You're going to have to be involved with this. And when I say that, what I mean is I want you to pull the dipstick out after, let's say, 5,000 mile and look at the oil. If that oil is still nice and amber, there's no sense in putting the filter on really in between time. It's like this. You need to look at the color of the oil. Now, if that oil is just as black as roofing tar after 5,000-6,000 mile, then you probably should go ahead and change the oil. And the reason for it being is if there was that much debris in the engine that was from the previous oil that you used, because AMSOIL is going to clean it up. I mean, there's no question about it. AMSOIL is going to make the inside of that motor spotless, and it will clean up any leftover debris. But we don't want so many free particles floating around because, the filter can only collect so much. And we don't want to be driving a car around with a plugged up oil filter because that's going to be, a worthless type of venture. So, but if the oil is staying nice and amber looking, go ahead and run it the full distance. But if you get up to about 10,000 mile and that oil starts, getting really, really, really dark, yeah, you may want to go ahead and do the oil service earlier that first time around. And then go ahead and extend the oil changes out to the 1 year, 15,000 mile. But you need to look at the oil. With your car, you need to look at that oil and see what it looks like, because the AMSOIL will clean up everything that your old oil left behind. And, but a lot of times we look at that first AMSOIL oil change as a cleanup change, and I'd rather do it like that than to run any type of a flush through a motor. A flush can be a horrible thing. You run a flush through an engine, and it can knock so much stuff loose at one time. Hey, well, shoot, it could plug up the oil sump, and starve the whole engine for oil. So in a case like yours, you just be the judge. You just keep looking at that oil when you check it, and we're looking for just an amber color. The oil's going to discolor a little bit just from using it. But if you get up to around 10,000 mile and it starts looking real black, we may want to go ahead and change it early that first time. I appreciate your call.
Thank you so much, Robert calling from Ocala. What do you say we stick with the Robert train and head to Robert calling from Longwood?
All
right,
right.
Robert, you're on with Larry Perry.
Robert, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
I have a 1989 S10 pickup with a 2.5 engine in it.
All right.
I'm the original owner, and I'm getting oil in the air filter.
Okay. Well, Robert, it's like this. How many miles do you have on this motor?
165.
Yeah. When you start getting so much crankcase pressure that it's causing oil to go back in to the air cleaner, that's usually an indication that there's cylinder wall and or ring wear in the engine itself. And what happens is when your piston is coming up on compression stroke, some of that compression is actually bleeding past the rings, and that pressure is actually getting into the crankcase. And the pressure is so great that it's actually pushing oil and vapor out of the crankcase vent system into the air cleaner housing. And then that will cause the air filter to become saturated with oil. So, you know, it's one of them situations. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're going to be a candidate, most likely in the near future, for either a reman motor or a rebuild. And what would have to take place to fix your motor would be to, pull it apart and then have the cylinders bored, probably 30 thousandths over if it's original, and put 30 thousandths over size pistons and rings in it, and go ahead and give it a valve job and make sure you got good bearings on the crank. And on that engine there, I believe it's timing gears, and that'd have it ready for another 150 plus thousand mile. But, to verify everything I'm saying 100%, a person can do a dry compression test and then do what is called a wet compression test. Dry compression test is going to tell you what they are dry on each cylinder when you run the compression test, and then when we add just a small amount of oil into each cylinder, and then we rerun that compression test. As long as you're within no difference, or within, I think it is 10%, you're still in a serviceable situation. But if, let's say we've got 130 pounds of compression across the board in all the cylinders, then we put that little bit of oil in each one of them, and then all of a sudden we got 175 to 185 pounds of compression, that means that cylinder walls and the piston rings have seen their better days, and that's why you've got so much crankcase pressure emitting oil and vapor back up into the air cleaner housing itself. I do appreciate your call, and who knows, if you're going to keep the vehicle and you want to get another 150,000 mile out of it, give us a call. We'll repower that thing with a Jasper, and they'll guarantee it for 100,000 mile. You have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. Josh is a highway, and we're going to talk about me all day long. If you want to talk to Larry Perry right now, get a hold of him at 844-580-9326. The Magic Mechanic is seconds away from giving you some expert advice. 844-580-WDBO. Let's head on over west to Kissimmee, where Dwayne's calling in. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Dwayne.
Question. 2016 Ford Edge. Got the electric button for the emergency brake, and I got to change the rear pads. What's the sequence for getting that caliper to release and collapse?
To do it for a do-it-yourselfer, I don't know, to be 100% honest with you. We use a scan tool to reset the actual rear calipers in order to be able to get them off and to be able to retract them to put the pads on. It's the same way with Lincoln Navigators and a lot of the Expeditions nowadays. They got the electronic brakes on the back of it. And we generally, on something like that, we'll just hook our snap-on scan system or either our Ford IDS or whatever, and then we can deactivate them, electronically in order to be able to do it. I don't know if there's a way to go through anything in the car to do that with or not, Dwayne. It would be a situation to where I would have to look it up and see if there was. But I guess being in a shop environment, we just go into the brake system, and then there's an option in there for us to deactivate the rear brakes for service, and that way, it'll actually, the electric part of it will actually extend out to the point where it'll collapse and allow us to pull the calipers off of the rotor and go ahead and put new pads on it. But in your case, I'd have to look it up to see if there was a manual procedure that you could do electronically as a vehicle owner, to do that. But you've got to deactivate them. You cannot, you won't be able to do it unless they're deactivated electrically. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I don't know, I'm pretty busy this weekend, but if you want to email me, Larry@magicmechanic.com, I'll look at that on Monday morning along with my other emails and stuff, and I'll see if there is a way, and if there is, I can look through my Mitchell program and find out if there is a manual way to actually do it. And if there is a procedure for it, I'll be more than glad to share that with you, Dwayne. Does that sound good?
Yep, I'll email you in just a little while.
Sounds good. You have a wonderful Thanksgiving coming up, too.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. We got one more call lined up. Tom is giving us a call from Deltona. Go ahead, Tom. You're on with Larry Perry.
Hey, Larry, I just want to wish you and your staff happy holidays, and we appreciate what you do for us.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that.
Hey, listen, I'm a former GM mechanic from New York, and somehow I wound up with a Mazda 6 and 05.
Okay.
And since I've had it, the good thing I'm a mechanic, the check engine light has been on. And I've tried, scanning and doing, some of the things it says, because sometimes it gets crazy with 5 or 6 codes because one relates off the other. So I try to do what I can economically. But here's my situation now. How do I tell a fuel injector that's not performing perfectly as compared to a coil? Because I'm getting a shake at an idle, not consistently, inconsistently.
Yeah, well, the only thing you could do is try to duplicate the problem and just disconnect, the electrical part going to the coil one at a time, to see if you can find the cylinder that it's actually acting up on. This is the key to it. What'll happen in a lot of cases, Tom, is because of these spark plugs being recessed into these cavities going into the heads, a lot of times what will happen is the oil will leak around, the valve cover gasket itself will actually allow oil to leak down into those chambers where the spark plugs are located. And it'll get oil on those insulators going from the coil to the plugs, and that'll cause a misfire on occasion, And a lot of times you'll pull the coils out, and you're going to see one of those boots that are just soaked with oil. And if that's the case, not only should you probably replace that coil and, of course, the plugs at the same time, but you probably need to go ahead and pull the valve cover, cam covers off, and go ahead and reseal those as well, to prevent it from happening again. But that's one of our biggest things. When we get a call like this, or somebody comes in or emails me or whatever, say they got a miss, and that's usually what's winding up happening. And the check engine light is probably because of misfire cylinder 1 or 2 or whatever, and that'll just keep going on until you actually get the problem solved. But anytime you pull those coils out of the motor and inspect the bottom of them, if it's got 100,000+ miles on it, I'd almost bet there's going to be oil on them. It's almost just that common. The only problem is if it's a V6, you got to pull the intake plenum and everything else off of the daggone motor in order to get in there to get to the rear spark plugs. Tom, I appreciate you giving me a call, and I hope that gives you a little guidance, and I hope that helps you. Folks, thanks for tuning in. You listeners, customers, show sponsors are the reason to do the show and have a job. You can tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time in Central Florida on 107.3 FM, HD Radio 96.5. 2 and AM 580 worldwide at WDBO.com, and click listen live, or just tell your smart speaker to play WDBO radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you need help with your vehicle, you can always call Magic Mechanic at 407-629-2661. Visit our website, magicmechanic.com, or you can also email your car questions directly to me, Larry at magicmechanic.com. Until next week, be safe in and out of your car, and if you're traveling up north for Thanksgiving, make sure you got some good antifreeze in there, and take your time. We want to see you back here the week after next. How's that? Everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving.